uncovering the light. Guess with solid minds, no tales of the strange. In Sasquatch Secrets, they'll begin to rearrange. Truth's the vibe, we're on a quest. Look beyond the trees, what do you see? Factual stories redefining history. No myths, no magic, let's break the mold. With every word spoken, the wonders unfold. No running footprints in the snow, not just a myth. Data and research was sift through the pit. Tales of a creature, but science leads the way. Nikki's quest for knowledge, come join and stand.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Sasquatch Secrets. It is so good to see everybody. Hey, it's almost Christmas. Are you guys ready? I'm not. I am and I'm not, but I'll get there. I will definitely get there. So, got a great show for you tonight. Let me do my little monologue thing and we'll get right to it. So, the Bigfoot subject has always existed on the edge between folklore and science, belief and evidence, passion and proof. But what often goes unnoticed is that for decades, the field was quietly held together by a small group of serious, grounded thinkers who refused to let it drift entirely into fantasy. In recent months, the Bigfoot community has suffered profound losses with the passing of Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Scott Violette of Squatch America, and Steven Streufert of the Coalition of Critical Thinking. We're not just losing individuals, we're losing an era. So these men represented a generation that came up during or shortly after the 1960s Bigfoot boom, a time when researchers still believed the mystery could be solved through patience, documentation, anatomy, fieldwork, and reason. Dr. Meldrum anchored the subject in academic credibility. Scott Violette pushed for structure, consistency, and boots-on-the-ground investigations. Steven Streufert challenged the community to think critically, question assumptions, and preserve the historical record. Even as his own bookstore, Bigfoot Books in Willow Creek, was later lost to fire. Tonight, we're not here to mourn blindly. We're here to ask hard questions. What happens to a field when its scientific guardians are gone? Are we witnessing the end of serious Bigfoot research as it once was known? And if so, what comes next? So this is Sasquatch Secrets, and tonight we're talking about legacy, loss, and whether the future of this subject still has room for science. Going to bring on my guest for this evening. If I can get over there. I see all in the chat. Thank you so much for coming, you guys. Love you guys so much. I don't know what's happening here. Okay. Got a little surprise for you guys. I have Hannah with us, everybody, from Squatch America. Hi, Hannah. How are you?
Don't make me cry with that little lip there. Oh, gosh.
I had to play that one.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you reached out to me. I've been coming out of my rock a little more and more, so thanks for pulling me out.
Yeah, I did. I needed to. I wish I had gotten in touch with you more, but I know that it's a process. You know, we kind of talked about that. It's a whole process when you are going through the grieving and picking up pieces. So, but just know that we love you and we still think about you. And I'm glad you're here. I'm going to bring on my next guest, and you guys are going to be surprised again. I think surprised again. So here we go. Hello, we have got Jeff Harding in the house. He exists. The man is here.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Everybody's going to be surprised tonight. Good to see you. Looking good.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I want to say a year. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Since I've been on anybody's shows, I've been a little busy, especially the last couple months with hunting season. I've been guiding up in the Bitterroot Mountains of Idaho and over in Montana, and I spent about 7 weeks off the beaten path.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, I hope everything's going good for you. We do miss you. We miss you jumping into chats and talking about things. And my other guest be here in about 15 minutes, so we are good to go. But anyway, so Jeff, did you get to hear my little opening monologue there?
I did. I did. You
Good.
know, when we were talking in a group chat earlier a little bit about the idea of this, you know, Steven's recent passing obviously kind of sparked the conversation. I mean, one death is a big deal, especially when it's somebody like Dr. Meldrum or somebody. Really impacts the community. But once you start getting to 2 and 3, and it's like, whoa, what's happening here? And even though maybe not directly related to the community, but back in October, Jane Goodall passed away. And so much of our community references her anthropology and primatology work and experience that, I mean, you could almost add a 4th name to just this last 6-month stretch, you know? And I found myself really going through old messages. I mean, it was crazy. I was looking through my Facebook Messenger, and I've still got conversations because I never deleted them that I had with Joe. These were conversations we had 6 months to a year before he passed away. And just the conversations and the in-depth, you know, just the sharing of ideas and, you know, perspective, you know, things to do out in the field and things like that. I mean, what a bright individual he was. And I mean, it was impactful. I don't know how much throughout the community, because I don't know how much any of us really have a stretch compared to, you know, like Steven or even Dr. Meldrum, but such a personal impact when Joe passed away. I mean, almost everybody in your chat was connected to him pretty well. So
for sure. It impacts all of us, because I was telling Hannah earlier, I go, we look up to these people, you know, we look up to them for standards and how to act, and sometimes not how to act, you know, but they still held a very high place in, I think, even I heard Pat Turner say pillars. You know, he mentioned the word pillars of the community. They hold us up, and they continue to help us maintain a forward motion, maybe. But
they set parameters. I mean, they might not have all had the same opinions, of course. I mean, but for every name or reference that we would all recognize in this community, saying this is where that person stands, there's another end of that of somebody else that you'll reference that maybe objects to that or has a different view of that. And, you know, anytime we find ourselves referencing these people, they've obviously had a big impact on the community because people have paid attention to their viewpoints and what they're saying. And so, also, I think you could say that the names that we're talking about tonight, especially, they weren't wishy-washy on what the views were. I mean, they were, I don't want to say heavily opinionated, but they had an idea of the subject that seemed like the most probable explanation to what we're dealing with. They didn't say, well, it could be this or it could be that, you know. They had strong opinions. But you know, and we'll get more into that as we go. But one of the things that I really respected about Steven, even though I probably knew him the least out of the names that we're talking about tonight, as far on a personal level, I mean, I didn't really ever meet him or visit with him, but I had conversations with him in chats and stuff. But you know, when you look at the group on Facebook, that he was really trying to give a place for people to come and share some viewpoints that maybe were a little out in the weeds at times. And yet, even when these budding opinions and different viewpoints got a little personal and stuff, he didn't just stomp it out all the time. He let it play out. He let people share their ideas and their viewpoints, even if they were different than his, you know?
Right.
But
right. I'm going to bring on another guest. Hold on. I can't find, there he is. Couldn't find his intro. Hey, Pat, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? It's going pretty good. Thank you.
You had brought up some really good things in the chat from earlier that we had in a group chat. And I'm bringing you on because those, you know, they were really important words that you had said about how, you know, they affected the community. And I said pillars. You had mentioned they were pillars. And that was a very strong statement. I thought that, you know, that's exactly what they are. They will remain that for hopefully, you know, a long time. But you never know the impact, you know, the impact of the loss. And
I'm actually, honestly, I'm a little surprised at the reaction of Steven's passing from the Bigfoot world. It's kind of surprised me because I see different organizations and you know, pages posting it who I would have never thought would have been they would have been anti-Steven or something, been one of those like, oh, that guy's, you know, like the hate thing, you know, and no, it's been the opposite. I'm kind of
and I noticed that too. But he's definitely he would rub people differently, right? I mean, we had an off and on thing there for a while, you know. But he always made sense to me in regards to most of the Bigfoot stuff, and sometimes critical thinkers are a little hard to talk to sometimes, you know, and that could be part of it. But I don't think in the majority of the Bigfoot community didn't want any harm to come to, you know, Steven or anybody. It was more of, you know, if that's not your cup of tea, then just move on because there's 1,000 more cup of teas down the street, you know, especially in our community. If you don't like the scientific or critical thinkers or whatever, the science-based stuff, there's a lot of other choices you could make, and a ton of encounter shows and stories and all of that type for people to gravitate towards. So it's not like there's nothing for you to watch. There's a lot of different stuff out there. And that's the one thing about these three men that I'm bringing a spotlight to, is because each one of these gentlemen are a different part of our side of the community. A critical thinker, an actual doctor of anatomy, and the locomotion, and he really could bring in that science education about how Bigfoot really could exist, because he had that science behind it. And Scott had so much more to offer with organizing Bigfoot organizations, his research, long-term investigations, and the way he was methodical in his field research and boots on the ground. And he also had that whole tribal side that he knew about, that came into learning about possible legacies and history with the Native American side and First Nations people, which was also amazing. So very different, but the respect I had for them, pretty much stayed the same. It was they had something to say and I would listen. I may not have agreed, but it was still, the pillar. I held them up on a pillar. So
I think one of the interesting qualities about Steven was that, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He was brutally honest as far as what his threshold of truth is. And to some people, and this may play into why, like, when you I share your opinion. I'm surprised at how many different organizations are referencing his death right now, when it seemed like, what would their connection have been to him, really?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But some of us had gotten to know him a little bit and just kind of understood his personality, so to speak. And to some people, maybe he just seemed really unapproachable, if we're being honest about it. Especially if you aren't really in the scientific based flesh and blood research, bring the receipts, right? If you're kind of out there spinning it to cross your plate, so to speak, he'd probably be one of the first to call you out on it, So,
but he was so obviously very approachable when you watch him in interviews.
Yeah, that, and when you had a conversation with him.
He has a cute smile on his face, and he's talking very calmly and articulately, just very matter of fact, but like not, this is so stupid. Even talking about Matthew Johnson, I watched I think it was the last camera interview from his bookstore that somebody had published recently, because of this. And he was even talking about Matthew Johnson. He was still very, very approachable. Like, you feel like you could sit right down with him in that bookstore and continue that conversation on without any ad hominem or nothing,
Don't you think part of that, though, is because if you didn't have the same opinion of him, whether it be on method or a person or a whatever with this subject, if you stood in a different corner of the room than he did on something, he at least communicated well enough that you understood why he felt the way that he did. He didn't just throw it out there and stop. I mean, he really communicated, this is why I feel this way, or this is why that's BS, or this is real, or whatever. And even if I didn't agree with him on something, it helped me understand how he got to where he is in his belief of something, right? He communicated that well. And people who communicate that well shouldn't feel unapproachable.
I agree.
You know?
And he wasn't unapproachable. Like that's not one thing I could say about Steven. Like I would never say that about that. Would be a dishonor to his memory. He was very approachable.
I'm just trying to come up with the explanation as to why we're seeing maybe some different areas of the community. Maybe it's just purely out of respect.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some of
He
them
never-
are
he never
speaking as
called
if they knew
anybody
him
names.
well and this and that. And I'm just thinking, I don't know if I can even reference a time where I saw a couple of these areas we're speaking about bring his name up in a show. You know, it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, true. But I could say this about Steven, dude. He never called anybody names.
No.
And even when in that interview where he was talking about Matthew Johnson, he nenever said cult. He never said kooky.
Very
he never
civil.
said that guy's, batshit crazy. He even talking about that. He would never call anybody names, and the only thing he wouldn't tolerate, he wouldn't tolerate ad hominem attacks in a coalition.
Sure. And I think that a lot of it, what I can recall seeing when I think of the different instances that he exemplified that was that he really understood the etiquette of disagreeing.
I agree.
Hannah, you told me that recently you had a meetup with your group of Squatch America peoples and had this same type of conversation. So what did you guys discuss about this?
Well, we actually, we about 20 of us in the Oregon, Western Oregon area got together last week. And basically, it was, because Squatch America was we originally founded it to mobilize citizen science. You want to go boots on the ground, here's how you do it. And somehow that morphed into us being a weekly YouTube show. So it's just, what we came to was that, the gatekeeper, and actually what you're talking about pillars, you're really talking about gatekeepers. We got 3 gatekeepers here, different gates on the community, different entry points. And if people don't know that Scott and I were not convicted and convinced in the same directions, but that's another topic. But what we came to was that, they're gone, but they have left us a legacy, and our conversation was specifically, how do we carry Scott's legacy forward? How do we carry citizen science forward without our biggest cheerleader? Without the guy, hey, what do I do with this photo? Hey, how do I, when the teachers go, it's time for the students to become the teachers. And that's where we are. Whether people like it or not, the mantle's been passed. And so what do we do with all of the chats we've been in, with all the Facebook groups? I'm going to say something that's probably very, very controversial, but we live in an age right now where, quote, lack of education and lack of information is no longer an excuse. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got fees, and we've got access to every last bit of knowledge known to mankind. And now we have to decide, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with everything that Dr. Jeff taught us? What are we going to do with, how many casting workshops could Scott give us before we knew how to go out there and do something? How many? And so that is, hey, I see Gordon. Hi, Pappy. So as Squatch America, we talked about, so what do? We keep going out there. We don't rely on the leader to mobilize us. It's just, it's time to just do it, because that's how real science happens, is eventually the teachers pass the mantle, and whether or not we were ready for it, we've got, boom. I think critical thinking is a hallmark of all three of these gentlemen. And so we keep being curious. We keep being respectful of people's experiences without, drinking the Kool-Aid immediately. So that's what we talked about. Squatch America will continue to go forward through local groups, working with each other, through our website, that sort of thing. But it was a harsh reality. We don't have anyone to ally behind now. Now we have to we just have to do it. It's a radical sense of responsibility. If we want Bigfoot research to go forward, we have to do it. We cannot sit on our backsides and expect someone else to do it and just latch on to what they were doing.
Yeah. Completely.
I was the harsh one, by the way. I was totally the harsh one in the relationship. Just suck it up, Buttercup.
Got somebody in the back here. Hey, Tate.
What's up, guys?
Oh God, are you in the hot tub again?
No, I'm not. I'm in my room laying down. I'm just feeling icky.
Oh. Almost
Hey,
wrong button.
you guys see my new job titles?
Job titles?
Yeah, I think it says it right there.
Take off the thing up here because it's in the way. There.
Well, I'm
CEO of something.
Half Blue Ribbon, and then CEO of Skynet.
You wish. So what are you doing, Tate? What do you have to say about loss and legacy?
I don't know. I'm pretty shocked about everything right now.
Because you've
I've
been
known
together
Steven.
with Steven a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah, I've known Steven a while. And so when I heard about it, I only found out like a couple of days ago. And I was like, there's no way it's real, but it turned out, unfortunately, that it was. So
Very.
Yeah. Did he ever go out to Bluff Creek with you?
we finally got him out there 2 years ago, and as far as I know, that was his last time ever out there.
Oh wow.
Really? 2 years ago? Was that before the fire or after?
Before.
Really? Mm.
So and then after, no, sorry, I misspoke. Sorry, it was after the bookstore fire.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
I know he did an interview also 2020 January, I think. Hold on, I think I have a slide of it. Nope, that's not it. Here on Sasquatch Experience, episode 115, Steven did I think it's just a podcast though. I don't think it's
audio, like just audio only.
audio. Yeah, it's just audio.
Yeah, I haven't listened to that one yet. I do want to hear it though, like at some point.
I know. I should have put it on my ear this morning when I was shopping. But I didn't do that.
Yeah,
So,
I wanted to see that that video. It was a really good interview, from his bookstore. It's about 36 minutes long.
yeah. So do you think that what do you think's going to happen? Coming, we've got others. We know we really looked up to the Four Horsemen, and then slowly they left, and then we had this other group that are in here, and I'd scared to death, and I don't like to talk about the loss of anybody, but you have to think about boy, really look up to certain people in the community, and what are our standards going to be? Do you think we have more people lined up that are just going to take over? That are just going to
Not
not that.
not Meldrum, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned what's going to happen to Coalition. Because somebody has to lead that charge for that page to be, or that group to be relevant. Somebody kind of has to carry that flag, and I'm not sure if Joseph Wheeler wants to do that or not. There's a lot of admins there, but I as far as the Steven aspect goes and Coalition, I don't know. It's a big question mark right now.
It definitely would. It takes a certain type of person to have that kind of group, because you really need to be able to wrangle. It's like herding the cats, type of things. Some cats can get really go off the deep end over there, and you need to really be paying attention to where the chats are going and all that. Which
Exactly.
he kept pretty good track of himself.
He did, and of course everything has to be approved. That changed a couple of years back, or a few years back, that if you post something there, it has to be approved first. So I know that he did a lot of that, because sometimes my stuff would be like 30 seconds, boom, it would be posted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's Steven. Like he's watching his stuff, So
yeah, for real. Because it's definitely going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact of future. Everybody, even documentaries, right? The first people that any of the documentary people go to was Dr. Meldrum, to have a little snippet of him talking about, or coming on and talking about footprints and how they're valid and evidence, and that they could show physical movement, and that's going to be, who are they going to get now? You think somebody else is going to come up with that and step in, or have we really lost somebody in that
Meldrum's role?
Yeah, Meldrum's role.
No, absolutely not. I just don't see it. He was extremely unique. Like he really hit the sweet spot for uniqueness in the discussion, and also the overall media aspect. So Meldrum could go outside the Bigfoot world into real media, and he was so articulate. Like he was, he had the credentials, and he had those sort of he showed his sort of passion for it. It came through. He's good. He was he looked the part. He's good look, strong jawline and all that, deep voice. I just don't see anyone filling those shoes at all.
It isn't just the fact that he was so established in the science that he was. To me, what was really remarkable was that he was at the same university for so long. Yeah. And even though many of his peers disagreed with him, and he knew they would when he came out, He brought the receipts that he had. He backed him up with the best he could by explaining why he held the positions that he held when it came to mid-tarsal breaks and dermal ridge lines and all the things that he went intricately into explaining to his fellow scientists, the fellow professors. And even though many of them said, I don't get it. It's the odds are too great against it. It can't be. He wasn't afraid of that. And when you look at
just like
the
Steven,
risk,
right?
risk versus reward, the professional risk that Meldrum put on the line to go where he went in this community and on this subject, I don't know that we're ever going to see somebody risk that again.
Right.
And I think that risk is what put him in the respect and established him so deeply as the pillar that he was.
True. Well, he did have tenure. So like once he achieved that,
yeah, that's true. But let me ask this.
Still,
do you think that today, do you think that today's Bigfoot generation can place more value on methodology over popularity? Do you think the egos of today's time are too big?
No. I think the quality of Bigfoot research and enthusiasm and the respect for the subject is going to go down as popularity and everything goes up. And sadly, a lot of the people that are passing away, I'm part of the newer generation, and then a lot of people I looked up to are passing away and getting older. They're not spring chickens anymore. And unfortunately, with the way TV is and just social media in general, it kind of ruined Bigfoot. I mean, social media has ruined a lot of things, just daily life in general. So, and just, I mean, look at the way that people are today, not in Bigfoot. Just it's the decline of knowledge has gone down vastly.
Yeah, it's easier for them to make up things and people will believe it more without getting any type of evidence or anything to back up statements.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think we've lost knowledge. I think we have so much knowledge in everything that we're in like information overwhelm. It's going to be up to all of us it's not that we lack knowledge, we lack discipline. We lack critical thinking skills because critical thinking, as a former public educator, critical thinking is the one thing that they have gotten rid of completely in our schools. And so when Dr. Krantz died, yes, he had a clear successor, Dr. Meldrum. Dr. Bendernagel's possible successor, my husband, just passed away. But they have taught so many people who are not seeking spotlight. I think that's the question. Do we have anyone that's going to take the spotlight? I can name 3 researchers, possibly more, in the Pacific Northwest right now that could fill Dr. Meldrum's shoes in a heartbeat because they have the knowledge, they have the discipline, they have, they've got the passion for it. What they don't want is the spotlight. So I think maybe we need to look at things a little bit differently.
I think outside of the spotlight,
Meldrum was fine with the spotlight. Yeah,
exactly.
Outside of that, though,
the media exposure. Yeah,
the data, the ability to look at data or even develop a theory and follow the science to where it leads, not to where you want it to go, not to where you hope it goes, not to where the most people in the chat want it to go, not to where the most merchandising will pay for it to go, but to follow the science to where it leads. By default, that eliminates the overwhelming majority of the people who could fill the shoes we're talking about filling. That's the fundamental problem here.
That's the lack of discipline.
Yeah, what I meant was like there's no lack of knowledge about in the subject of Bigfoot. I'm just saying, like, with a lot of people my age, it seems like there's going to be a lack of respect for that knowledge and how you use that knowledge.
And I think it's similar to everything else, and that's why I mentioned, the whole gatekeeper thing. It's just the whole, when gatekeepers of all knowledge, and we have lived through the last couple decades where, we can't obviously automatically trust anyone in what we call leadership because they've completely screwed up everything. And so it really is going to have to be us, the people who really want to see this go forward. I mean, gone are the days when we can look to, quote, leaders, look to pillars. It's if we want this to go forward in a healthy and in a logical way, it's going to have to be up to us. And sitting around and whining and Bigfoot research is lost, that's not going to move us forward at all. And there will be idiots. There are always idiots, and I will call them, I don't have a problem calling them out, but there are people who want to do it for merchandising. There are people who want to do it for personal gain, but there are also people who really want to see this go forward. And not because we don't know that the creature is real, but there is so much that we have to learn from the process itself. So that's I don't think we're hopeless. Of course, I never think we're hopeless.
Yeah.
Hopeless.
Well, I remember one of the conversations that I had with Jeb Meldrum, and it was a lengthy one. We had talked for almost an hour and a half one evening about this. And that's that I was asking him when somebody sits down and starts communicating with him on this subject, how can he get over that? You're always trying to read the person you're talking to, right? We want to figure out, are we talking to somebody? Are we communicating with somebody who brings some reference to understanding the subject, who's been out and had an experience, or at least if they haven't had an experience, can look at it in a realistic way and weigh the possibilities, can correctly triage, for lack of a better word, the most probable explanation to data that they're seeing or considering. When I talked to him about this, he said that is what really blew him away, is that a lot of people are open to talk about the subject. It's crazy how people will not just approach him, but people he would find himself in conversations with. He said, the biggest problem that I had was that they weren't open to consider something different than what they were already subscribed to. And that, he said, is literally a cancer that is eating this community alive. You have to be able, if I totally disagreed on a certain subject with you, if I gave you 30 minutes to sit down and articulately explain to me why you stand where you stand, you're at some point in that conversation, I'm going to be able to say, you know what, I haven't considered that before. It might not bring me to agree with you, but you're going to share something with me that I'm going to consider differently. And people, he said, it just is disappointing that people can't have these conversations and absorb from each other. If I don't stand where you stand, let me understand why you stand where you stand.
Yeah.
If we could get there, I think, and I guess that kind of comes back into the understanding the etiquette of disagreeing, which is what I kind of prop
Yeah.
Steven up for. I think
Right.
that really, that's one of the things that Jeff said. We need to get to where we can have the conversations. It's not realistic to go out in the woods on any given weekend and expect that something's going to happen. It is not something you can expect to happen. The population
rare and
can't
elusive.
exist at that level to be able to expect anything.
Rare and elusive.
Yeah.
Towards at the very towards the end of Jeff's life, he actually adjusted his idea of Meldrum, adjusted his population idea
Mhm.
from there's maybe
He sized it down
maybe
considerably.
4,000, like roughly 4,000 Bigfoot in all of North America to about 2,000.
Yeah.
Which would be about one for every like 200 black bear.
Which I've had that conversation with him and two other people, and I don't want to get into my opinion. My opinion is that it's extremely lower than that yet. But he shared, he openly would share my opinion, at least he did in this conversation, that they are on the verge of extinction, that they are in a decline. Likely the numbers that were present 70 years ago when this thing hit the map, so overnight with a sensation, to where they're at now, they just cannot exist in those numbers when you look at the credible evidence that exists and when you consider the data accurately. Now, I know that if we look at the community as a whole and we take in everybody's little creek in the night was Bigfoot, I mean, the population would have to be about probably about 4.5 million of them in North America to be able to do that, right?
Way more than black bear.
But I mean, I even what I look at when I had my encounter in 1987, and I look at in the last 70 days, I just logged another 750 hours looking through spotting scopes at the most remote wilderness in North America, watching mountaintops, ridgelines, river bottoms. And I've seen almost every mammal that exists in Idaho and Montana, literally. And I didn't see one. And when I look at the literally 9,000 hours that I've spent guiding in these remote areas, thinking that this is a flesh and blood creature, they're here. I think it's way more likely they're aware that I'm here before I would ever be aware that they're there in any given area. But that still doesn't mean when I'm watching animals and wildlife from such a distance with such powerful viewing optics that I could easily catch one if they were here in numbers. And when I consider how many hours I've spent at it, I just have to believe that I think that Meldrum felt where they were at population-wise 200 years ago, where they were at 70 years ago, and where they're at now, it is a rapidly declining number.
Has to be. I mean, Meldrum was the one that coined rare and elusive.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he would talk to the media and they would ask him, how could there be an undiscovered primate in North America? He would say, and this is the important part, is the first part, they would have to be rare and elusive. That's how. That's the only way there could ever be an undiscovered upright walking primate. The most amazing biological discovery, by the way, in human history. The only way that could ever play out is if they were rare and elusive. And so Meldrum, he would always talk to the media in that way when they would ask him that.
You know, he had, even though he was willing to have put himself out there, and certainly has, I can't imagine. I wonder if anybody's ever counted how many times he's been interviewed, referenced in articles, whatever. I mean, thousands of times,
and
right?
thousands, yes.
But what he would put out there for people to digest versus what he was willing to have in a close conversation with you, you could tell that even though he always maintained what he put out there as being how he felt and as being truth as best he understands it, he would be willing to, at least the moments that I've talked to him at length, and I was able to leverage that through somebody else. I mean, I didn't just go knock on his door and introduce myself. It was through Doug. It was through Doug that I really got to have conversations with him. But understanding that he would open up and say, "Oh, I think, I'd share an opinion with him." He'd say, I could agree with that, and I'm thinking, I can't imagine him doing an interview stating, "I believe this to be the case." But, what he put out there and where he was at, I believe there had to be two different levels of that. What he believed to be likely or even possible versus what he felt the data reflected as being reasonable to assume was two different things. And one, and you've seen this a lot, especially in the famous interviews where, you've got Todd standing and different people have tried to use Meldrum as a, launch pole, right?
Right.
And, they'd try to lead him into something and he'd say, I don't know that I could agree with that. I never said that. He would correct them to make sure people understood. I'm not putting that out there, right? But
right. So we know, okay, that Steven was openly critical of bad evidence and poor reasoning. But do you think that critical thinking is often rejected in Bigfoot circles as a norm? Or,
Absolutely.
is skepticism being confused with disbelief?
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot.
Having the data to disprove something usually is as hard to come by as having the data to prove something. But being able to portray something as being likely or unlikely,
probability,
or highly unlikely,
mm-hmm.
I've used that quite often. I'll say in interviews, I think that's highly unlikely. But you will not hear me say that's impossible because I don't have the data to show that's impossible. And if I'm going to follow the scientific method in all of this, which I try to do religiously, I cannot throw the rhetoric of screw you, that's impossible out every time I disagree with somebody because I can't prove that's impossible.
Right. On an individual basis, on a case-by-case basis. But when you take the narrative as a whole, it's very easy to throw reality and statistical probability right into it, and it never measures up.
I'm more likely to find somebody as a unreliable source than I am to say what they're saying isn't possible.
Yeah.
I'm probably more likely to say I can't give credit to what you're stating here. There's inconsistencies in the way you say it or whatever,
And somebody, Ben Radford could say that to you,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I found it, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about
So
just the overall narrative is
right.
it doesn't measure up to reality at all, or
So if
statistical
we
probability. You know.
talk about Dr. Meldrum, and he served as a bridge between academia and the Bigfoot research, right? But without him, do you think that the subject loses its scientific legitimacy?
I think that it's hard for scientists to access the subject if they
Yeah.
don't have a viable, recently accessible, quotable resource to get in that door. You know, you're basically, just to give an example, if I'm going to talk about as a scientist why I believe that this can exist or whatever, am I going to reference, well, many in the community say this, or am I going to say, according to Dr. Meldrum, right? Now, we're going to rely on everything that he's put on record, so to speak, and let that stand and hang next to the doorway, so to speak. But he's no longer accessible for those interviews and things. He's now a reference.
It was, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't a scientific legitimacy; it was a PR legitimacy, which was given. It had a scientific, like background, like had a scientific articulation. But it was more of a PR legit, like scientifically PR wise, not actual science. Because as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff Meldrum never ever had anything published in a scientific journal relating to Bigfoot. I know for a fact that there is not one scientific published journal that has ever accepted one Bigfoot track ever.
Yeah.
Accepted as an undiscovered primate.
Oh, wait, didn't he have oh my gosh.
Relic
In the
hominid.
the relic hominid stuff?
Yeah, but that was self-published, I believe.
He had
Relic
his own
hominid,
yeah,
you
I think he had his own research journal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so somewhat self-published, his own research journal, but no, like Meldrum never actually had anything from the scientific world, like published, reviewed, or anything like that. Maybe some interest, interest. Even Erica was interested, like she was interested, but she would always say there's not enough to go on to say that I'm going to sit here and say that there's actually an undiscovered primate in the woods.
Well, and he would always have to preface everything that he ever said in the scientific, from a scientific position, when it came to the things that he was versed in and accredited to as data, meaning locomotion. He would say, if these exist, the locomotion would likely be yada, yada, yada. It would require this or require that. It would have a fluid motion to it. But he'd always preface it with, if these exist, or if this is
right,
because if he doesn't do that, by every other scientific standard, he's not following the scientific method.
True.
He's making an assumption on something that exists that's not proven to exist. So he always had to preface what he's saying. And if that's the case, you're not going to be able to write a scientific paper on any of it. You would have to document it in a journal.
And he knew that, no matter how personally frustrating that was to him.
Yeah.
And it was personally frustrating
because
he would occasionally make the statement of himself personally saying, he would say, like, if I didn't have anything else to go off of except the footprint evidence, if I only had the footprint evidence, I would say that they're real. Like there's definitely 100% a undiscovered primate walking around. and he would say that in a very clever, personal way,
Mhm,
knowing
mhm.
that like he can't. That's not going to equate to a publishing
But
of
he had a very
acceptance.
realistic take on. I asked him one time, do you find it frustrating that you don't have more in your scientific brotherhood, so to speak,
Yeah, yeah.
or academia, that stand next to you and say this is possible? He says, if 100 other scientists that were all accredited professors of locomotion all stood next to me and said that, this thing wouldn't be any more real or unreal than it is right now.
That's true.
And that's true.
It's not a consensus.
The data is what it is.
Yeah. It's not a consensus. Yes.
So then should Bigfoot research even be trying to stay connected to academia anymore?
Oh yeah. It should only be in the hands of what I call I've been saying this for years now, professionals.
And she doesn't. Hannah's on that other end.
Yeah.
Well, I believe there needs to be a connection to academia and professionals that are in existing sciences and using existing methods that aren't applying them to this subject and steering them to the subject. Okay,
it has to be objective. It can't. Yes. If it's coming from Bigfooters, then it's the bias is everywhere, like the blinders and the bias, and there's so much of that.
Everybody has that. Everybody has that. So
not the people that don't think it's possible.
Yeah, and each one of us, and this is where Squatch America was really our purpose. The future of this is not going to come from a laboratory. It's not. It's got to be citizen science, but that also means that as citizen scientists, we've got to educate ourselves in how to do it, in how to follow the scientific method, in how to maintain integrity in our research. And I loved what Pappy said here in the chat. He said, sometimes critical thinking can close the door to open-mindedness. Yes, it can. When you only rely on your own experiences and don't explore the unexplained, you need insatiable curiosity, and curiosity has got to trump being convinced every time. We've got to stay curious. We've got to stay open-minded to people's experience without blindly accepting an explanation. So we've got to be open to experiences. There are famous Bigfooters out there who don't give a rat's behind on experiences people had because they haven't had one. And so they are moralizing other people's experiences if they don't line up with their own.
And the problem is that anecdote. Curiosity is one thing. You could be curious and still understand. You can understand that anecdote is not evidence.
No, anecdote is not evidence. Yeah. However, even in the research field, anecdote is where qualitative research starts, and enough qualitative research leads to quantitative research.
Right. And again, you're almost treating anecdote as evidence. Well, it's a lead. It's a lead.
It's qualitative research. It is, that's how we do. And of course, that I could be wrong, but I almost hear something coming saying the social sciences are not sciences. Okay, fair. But that's what qualitative research is the collection of narrative and anecdote and experience until you have enough to say, okay, here's something we can measure. We have enough of these. Now let's go see how to measure it.
The only logical step in Bigfoot research is observation. So which means we need more people off their couches and out there. No.
So I've said this a lot in past shows when I was running my channel and actually doing shows. It's been a while now, but science used to be driven by curiosity.
Yes, absolutely.
It's no
course,
longer
it's
driven by
always
curiosity. It's driven by
always
money. Every
Yes.
study that's
or
out there is
can
being
be.
there is a predetermined outcome necessary for me to fund this deal, and I will give your college the money to go out and do this study. Here's what I'm hoping to find.
Yep.
It's all tainted, it's all pre-led, it's all money driven. We used to stand on a hillside 200 years ago and look down at a river and say, I wonder what kind of fish are in there. And we'd walk our ass down that hill to go see what kind of fish were in it,
Yep.
right? We don't do that anymore. Curiosity doesn't drive science. Not in the academia, it doesn't. And that's what was fundamentally different about Dr. Meldrum.
Well,
He
fortune-
followed his passion and
He
his
did.
curiosity in this subject.
But
Your
fortune-
normal scientist or professor versed in locomotion and anthropology would not look at Todd Standing or anybody else and say, I'll take you up and go out there for a week and chase something that you say is real and I don't have any proof of it.
Mhm.
They wouldn't. There's no science. But it was his curiosity that brought him there. Okay. And so that's what the citizen science is bringing to this. It's an unfettered, unpolluted drive to find the truth. It's not paid for in advance.
Not paid
The
for in
problem
advance, that's for sure.
Not paid for at all.
No.
Just like
But the ability to look at data and develop hypothesis and develop critical thinking and look at data and say, what is the most plausible explanation for what I'm looking at? What is the least likely explanation? And try to wade through that and come up with something without being the same as money pollutes science. We fall guilty. A lot of this community falls guilty of polluting the analyzing of this data because they want something to be a certain way so badly that it is completely biased before we actually analyze anything. And it can't be that either. If I'm going to follow the scientific method, whether I'm doing a certain research method or whether I'm just sitting in a tree stand listening, when I hear something, when I see something, when I look at statistics, when I'm looking at photographs, I have to approach this with the same tenacity to prove that this is real that I do to prove that it's not. And if I don't consider data unfettered in that way, I'm not doing this community any service.
Well, there's only three plausible explanations for the Bigfoot phenomena. One of them's actually not very plausible at all, but you could categorize that, and that is in this order of it's an undiscovered upright walking primate. It is a manifestation of human archetype and hallucination, folklore, or something like that, or it's a magical being. Those are the only three plausible explanations. The last one being actually not all that plausible, because magical being is nothing really. It's like you can't even wrap your head around what that is, you know.
Well, once I asked Dr. Meldrum, what do you think is the most solid point or thing to consider when discussing that this thing could be or is real? And he shared a couple different things as to, we talked about the tracks and things like that. We talked about just testimonies, people sharing their experience, and
Right.
some of them, when you get down to it, are really hard to disprove. I mean, especially when you start looking at
Compelling.
somebody risk versus reward, and you start vetting their background, and it's like, boy, man, where is the want to make this up coming from, right? I mean, it just doesn't seem likely to exist now. But he flipped the same question back on me, and when he asked me, what do I think is the most solid thing to discuss when it comes to the likelihood of this being real, I said the same thing I've said on all of your guys' shows, is it is highly unlikely that 10,000 years ago a bunch of cavemen were sitting around and one of them got so drunk that he made up a story about Bigfoot and drew a picture of it on a wall, and somehow, with no internet, with no nothing, that spread throughout everywhere globally, because we can go back hundreds of years, whether you're looking at Native American literature and recorded lore, so to speak. When you look at cave drawings globally around depictions of the same creatures all over the earth, these were done before the internet. How the hell did one guy make up a story drunk around a campfire and this took off and got recorded globally the way it did? It's impossible that could happen. And he was laughing so hard when I said, he said, you might be right. That might be the most credible evidence that this can't be made up. It might not be the most credible evidence that it's real, but it sure destroys the shit out of the idea that somebody made this up and drew it on a cave 10,000 years ago. How did it get all over the world then, woven through lore and recorded all over?
Well, I mean, to that I say, does that make Dogman real? Because the Egyptians drew them? I mean,
Well, it was maybe not flesh and blood real, but it was real in the mythology of the stories they told.
Sure. Again, back to the archetype. I mean, so archetype would be, it's something that's made up in the mind, even
and if you're
even in 2025.
let's say if you're backing up to like the 600s through like the 1500s, when sailing and even intercontinental travel, so to speak, stories and depictions and things could have spread wildly. 10,000 years ago, not likely that you're going to see a drawing of something in Mexico that you're seeing in Russia and China and Greenland and Alaska. And, it's like, dude, somebody didn't walk all over the whole world.
I mean, maybe
it draw the same thing, right?
Maybe it was Gigantopithecus. I don't know, right?
Yeah. Who knows? They could have been referencing something.
I mean, the Denisovans, like, God, when did the Denisovans go out?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's ancient social media.
Yeah. I mean, we already know about, Denisovans and, like Neanderthals and
right.
And we're kind of getting away from talking about the folks that we were here to talk about tonight, but I do believe that the conversation that we're having is based on the simple, structured, elements to the conversation that they were comfortable having. They weren't looking at it saying, a portal, it's got to be a portal. That's the only way you could explain that. I mean, first of all, I believe all of them approached it as a flesh and blood creature first.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to discount that there may be a supernatural connection somehow, because I can't prove that there isn't at this point.
Right.
But so by applying the scientific method, I have to assume that I'm starting at the threshold of a flesh and blood creature.
Yes. Yes.
And I believe, whether we're talking about Joe, Steven, Scott, or Dr. Meldrum, all four of them started there. Now, I'm just going to tell you, that discounts half of this community from being able to say, I get where you're coming from here. So when we're talking about who's going to take over this or that, for who? For those seeking the truth in pursuit of understanding what is likely a flesh and blood creature, at least that's where we're going to start. And we're going to look at data. We're going to listen to testimonies. We're going to follow what we have and try to look at what's the most plausible explanation first, and then work through the list to try to find a truth. Okay. If we're going to do that, I'm just telling you right now, and I'm not trying to be an asshole saying this, but half of the community is incapable of doing it.
Easily. I'd say more than that.
Yeah.
I'm a much, much higher percentage than you are on that one, bro.
I think that's because today's modern Bigfoot researchers seem to, and I'm included in this, spend more time documenting themselves than documenting the evidence when we're out there. We're out there having fun and we're documenting ourselves on the road and going to these areas out there.
And there's a reason why they do it, Nikki, because the overwhelming majority of people who are watching most of their shows are there to be entertained and taken on a journey. They aren't there trying to find the truth.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with
entertained.
That. It's fun. It's a fun journey. It's a fun journey when people are being genuine. Right. So I trust Nikki. I trust Nikki or Jeff or any of the fine folk that are here or been here. I trust all of you to go out in the woods and document your journey as you see it. In other words, not a Todd Standing kind of BS, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? That's fun. It's kind of like watching a camping channel, like the Outdoor Boys or something. Hey, show me what you're cooking. By the way, too.
I love that guy.
Yeah, of course. Like, show me what you're cooking. What's your yummy meal you're gonna have there at your Bigfoot experience? Like that's fun and that's entertaining. It's not gonna move the ball down the field like in the scientific way because you're just out. I mean, doing the same thing I do when I go camping.
Okay, so here's a good question then. Did the older generation act as a buffer against extreme paranormal claims with Bigfoot?
Relative to the time and the technology at the time.
I think they had less questionable motives.
Renee DeHenden would have been the first person to start yelling and screaming, "You're an idiot if you think they're magical beings."
That's true.
Yeah, like he would have grabbed the mic and said, "No, you're wrong. You're so wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Listen, these things are primates. They are fucking, like in like 1982, when the internet didn't exist and these kinds of things weren't talked about,
right?
Because when you're connected to the rest of the world and you throw your magical being, thoughts out there, then you can actually get people paying attention to that. That's human psychology, and that's all that is. It's just.
Do you think fewer scientific voices are the woo side going to be filling that vacuum that's going to happen?
There's no science to the woo side. You're talking about something we don't understand. Science is to understand. So there is no
The
scientific
woo
woo.
side is satisfying
Themselves.
the demand on the subject, but they're not
Yeah.
satisfying the explanation for the truth.
And they can't because it's just
No, they can't.
unexplained. It's so everything woo is just people's imagination, literally. They're just imagining what the unexplained is. The unexplained is nothing more than the unexplained. And I'll make this statement right now. The Bigfoot phenomena is unexplained, in my opinion.
Yes.
There's no explanation for it, because I just can't wrap my head around an undiscovered primate marching around North America in 2025. That makes no sense to me. So I'm right back where I started 10, 12 years ago, scratching my head and looking at Jeff going, really, dude? Like, really?
It's the way I
all
look
can
at
do
myself.
all I can do is scratch my head and say,
Pat,
bro, I don't know what that is. I don't
Pat?
know what that is.
after 9,000 hours of sitting in the remote wilderness areas of Idaho and Montana and Canada, looking through spotting scopes, I ask myself that every freaking morning I wake up out there. It feels, I can still
Yep.
close my eyes and it's like watching a movie, reliving every moment of what I experienced in 1987. It was as real will ever get with anything in my life.
And I believe you.
And I'm just telling you, the more time I spend out there not being able to reproduce it, that's why I really do agree with Dr. Meldrum, and I have developed this theory that we are on a
They're gone.
population decline that is so drastically falling at this point
Yeah.
that if you look at where it was likely maybe 70 years ago and where it is now, I think in 30, 40 years, there might not be anything left to talk about. I'm not saying I have any data to show that. I'm just saying that if somebody who actually knew the truth, if Dr. Meldrum appeared to me from heaven and said, I found the truth, here's what it is, and he said, they're all gone now, or in 30 years there'll be none left, I'd be like, I wouldn't be surprised, I guess,
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Like, let's just say Patty's real. What Roger captured was a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
Okay, that's not a guy in a suit. That's a Bigfoot. Let's just say 100% that's real. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all gone. They don't. They're absolutely already extinct.
Well,
Like,
I still think that we have testimonies that are coming in that are
I'm saying I wouldn't be
credible,
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
but
if they were all gone by now.
The one thing that didn't exist when Thomas Steenberg and the Horsemen and all them were comparing notes and studying each other and listening to accounts and investigating these areas these accounts took place at, the thing that didn't exist was YouTube and 1,000 channels with 950 of them spouting complete bullshit, made up crap. They didn't compete with that, okay?
That's true.
And we're when we look at the three men pictured on this screen, I'm going to tell you what, we're a couple more critical losses away from having any living connection to what existed, or anybody who had feet on the ground experience of following a scientific investigative method to finding the truth. Everybody who's been doing it in the last 20 years has been trying to wade through the chin deep pool of bullshit that exists on YouTube while they're doing it.
Yeah, more like the
And
past
that
5
sucks.
years. More like the past 5 years. But yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah,
what you're
they need to
saying.
pull away from social media completely because they can't do it. And then we are at a loss because we don't know what they are accomplishing or not accomplishing. There are still people out there that come on the daily into social media saying, oh yeah, I saw them this weekend. I saw them last weekend. I saw them the weekend before. They're having
Yeah.
constant encounters, but Bigfoot doesn't like to have their picture taken, so they don't want to disturb
Yeah.
them.
So
And-
Desert
Yeah,
Rat Gardner says there's no
Yes.
evidence of population decline. There's no evidence of a population. Okay, let's just establish that first.
I agree.
Okay, now let's finish what you're
Incline,
saying.
you know,
You know, failure to see another one can be due to several possibilities. I can tell you one possibility is not due to the technology that existed. If we, and I'm not saying this is easy to do, but if we wanted to say, let's suppose Patty was real, and what they did 70 years ago, riding out on horses with a camera and capturing what they did. When you look at, and I've talked about this to nauseum almost, when you look at today with the technology that exists between thermal imaging, everything, and you look at the amount of it that's being applied into the wilderness, tagged species being monitored, populations of elk herds and everything, flying drones over them 5 times a day to see where did they move to, where did they go to,
tracking
mountain
birds.
lion tracking.
Yeah.
The amount of paid for science that is out there imaging the living shit out of every living being in the wilderness.
Yep.
For none of them to come forward and say, look what we caught.
Holy shit. Look at this thing.
Yeah. For none of them to do
Right.
that. When you look at how many hours are
and
spent every day doing that in the most remote areas, for that not to have happened is pretty,
And they're
it is pretty good evidence that a population decline would have to at least a decline in the real existing numbers as there are today versus what everybody would like to purport or get you to believe there are.
and they are observing tens of square miles at a time, tens of square miles, as opposed to a couple hundred feet.
Now, I would agree. I can't prove that something that it doesn't exist. I can't prove that there's less today than there were 10 years ago. I can't prove that.
You can make the case for it, though. You can't prove it. You can make the case.
I'm trying to support what I believe is the most likely, most probable explanation here,
and that could be backed up with
because
facts
if we're going
and
to ask the question, how can this many aircraft and drones with the thermal technology and the 8K imaging and everything else being flown tens of thousands of flight hours every day by scientists and universities, states tracking wildlife, and we don't end up with stray footage of these existing? There's just no explanation. There's
only the excuse. They won't release
the
it,
most
Jeff.
probable explanation of that is the numbers that they exist in are a shit ton less than what you've been led to believe. And that's not saying they don't exist.
Correct.
That's just saying I don't think they exist in the numbers that 99% of the people we're paying attention to in this community would tell you they did.
But then again, you say led to believe, but one of the most prolific pillared voices in the Bigfoot world always said they would have to be rare and elusive. Jeff Meldrum.
So
Okay,
Yeah.
so
You
let me.
believe that the wilderness is covered by cameras and thermal imaging. I have 35 remote cameras right now set up all over the
BRB.
Bitterroot Mountains, and right now I can look at all of them through cellular data. They show me live pictures. I'm getting pictures of grizzly bears. I'm getting pictures of marmots. I'm getting pictures of every vertebrate mammal that exists. I have seen. And that's just on the 35 cameras I have out there. I'm one hunting guide. Times me by 25,000, okay, and all the cameras they have out there. And now you look at I know for a fact, I actually helped with their study. The state of Montana tracks the elk herds. They also track the grizzly bears because over the last 10 years, the grizzly bears have been leaving the mountains and they've been getting down into the flatlands. And that is a huge dilemma for scientists trying to explain why. Okay. But they tag them. And what they do is 4 or 5 times a day, they're flying over these areas and they're tracking where these tagged animals are. And they do it at night too. And they do it with thermal imaging. I'm just telling you, literally, there are thousands of flights a day in the most remote areas tracking tagged and collared animals. And they are showing up with thermal footage and 8K footage of pretty much every mammal that exists. And yet we're not finding the big, not evidence they don't exist, but certainly evidence that they don't exist in the numbers we've been led to believe by most of the people out there.
Okay, so the future of the subject, and is Bigfoot research at a crossroads? And I'm going to send this question to Hannah because, she was mentioning Scot and Bindernagel. Do you think that younger researchers have missed an opportunity to be mentored by some of our older investigators and researchers, or is this still happening? I don't know of very many the younger generation who are teaming up or collaborating with any of the older researchers anymore. I used to hear about
what
it.
sparked it for you, Nikki, when you were younger?
Yeah.
And you, because I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 40 years ago.
Yeah,
And I'm not going to risk aging you any more than saying 40 years ago. But
my story is the same as a lot of other people. I grew up loving the cryptid stories, the nations, and I was a book reader. And the number one thing we did is every Saturday we went to the library and we picked up a bunch of books, and that's what I had. I had Loch Ness to Mothman to Bigfoot. Now, years later, I got stuck in a situation where I didn't have TV. I was in South Korea and I had very limited ability, TV stuff. So I turned to the internet. And from the internet, I watched every single Bigfoot show, everything. Back then wasn't as much as now. Okay. But that's what sparked my interest. But my interest quickly changed to how many falsehoods I kept running into. How stories were changing and how I was able to track certain things down. One of the big things back in the day was the giant in the creature of the giant sequoias, and how people just ran with all these pictures and making up stories. And I'm like, that's a student film from Sean Bannon. And you know what? So that's what got me going into speaking very forward about there you can't just come and make up things and have people believe all this stuff.
I remember being 8 or 9 years old at a daytime matinee at a movie theater, probably watching the Apple Dumpling Gang or something like that. And before the movie started, they're showing trailers of stuff. And all of a sudden they showed the PG film, or at least an excerpt of it.
Yeah.
Almost like entertainment, like they're showing it. And I remember looking at that thinking, holy shit, is this real? You know?
Right.
And as fascinated as I was, I mean, we didn't have an internet. We didn't have, you had a set of encyclopedias at your grandma's house that if you went and looked up Sasquatch, there ain't shit there. Okay. There's nothing in there about it. And so when I had my experience in 1987, and I've said this many times, I didn't grow up in a family where we sat around the fire and I had some uncle telling stories about Bigfoot or something. I mean, this was off my radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was the son of a hunting guide, had a lot of experience with big game animals of all sorts, found myself in remote areas now and then. Okay. I was 18 years old and I was on an island about 100 miles north of Flin Flon in Manitoba, where there probably was likely not another human being within 30 miles of me other than the people that I was with. So I didn't go out expecting anything certainly to happen that day, but I had no reference of what I was experiencing either. Okay. And I think that's one of the unique things that we can offer young people. If we can do it in a realistic, boundaried way of giving them a reference of what we believe is the likely explanation of what's out there, so that if they were to go on and have an experience, they have some threshold of reference. I mean, it's not like you're thrown into the deep end of the pool and you never felt water before, right?
If it were that,
But the problem is the reference that they're getting is more woo than more, probable explanation.
Well, if they had a 20 feet in front of me broad daylight experience, I don't think woo or undiscovered primate would even go through their brain. They would have the same reaction.
I'm reverting back to Nikki's question of is there what do we do here with this template of the same way Thomas Steenberg, in the same way that Jeff Meldrum, in the same way those other people brought a realistic introduction to the subject to so many people, right?
Yeah.
How do we do that right now? Well, you can't do it in a clean swimming pool because there's too many people peeing in it.
No, you just have to advocate for, you said it best earlier, it's a good starting point. So a good starting point is undiscovered primate. But you start getting into like how people think and what they want to believe in. And belief is a way different thing, dude. Like, we have all kinds of we have, pretty popular religions that are based on belief. There's no physical, tangible anything there. And people I've seen them do it, transpose that kind of power and the rigor to the Bigfoot subject.
Yeah.
You earlier you mentioned that you knew of researchers in the Pacific Northwest who could fill some of these shoes, but you're saying that they don't want to be part of the public. They don't
want to have spotlight. They don't care about spotlight, and they certainly don't want to be in the middle of the fracas and the infighting that we have in the Bigfoot community. And I wanted to answer the question because DSB Mitchell said, I would love to hear Hannah's response to the original question. I don't think our young people have missed any opportunities, because I will agree with Jeff. Scott did not have a mentor. He was not mentored by Dr. Jeff. or anyone else. He went in with insatiable curiosity and educated himself to support that curiosity.
Yeah.
And went with it, and in so doing became a mentor to other people. So, you know, if you want something bad enough, you're going to figure out how to get yourself there. It's my harsh mama coming out. You want to achieve, you want to be a Bigfoot researcher? Well, look to what's already out there. How did they do it? Go do it. You know, so I don't get into all this, oh, they just don't have any more hope. They don't have any way to learn anymore. Because like I said, some knowledge of all mankind is on these dastardly devices that we're all stuck to. And yes, Pappy, they're going to have to get off their couches and get off their devices and get out there. So now what was your next question? I just totally.
Well, I had just said I thought if it was a crossroads that, you know, I don't think we are. I think we're going to continue on, and I think I
think we're at a place where we have to take it upon ourselves to do it now.
Yeah.
And who knows? Someone may rise up. I know. I mean, I'm coming from a place where my husband did have an eyeball to eyeball encounter, and it's documented. Now, granted, photo documentation, footprint, you know, it's all documented. Is it evidence? Would it stand up in court? Well, I don't trust anything that stands up in court anyway, but that's my own disillusionment with our entire human system. But you know, so, but I think the crossroads we're at is that we don't have the gatekeepers anymore. And not that the gates are shut, they've been blown off. I mean, the dam is broken, the information's out there, the methodology's out there, the techniques are out there. We just got, you know, you got to go do it. And stop making excuses for not doing it. And again, it comes down to what I do see that we as a society have done as a disservice is we have not insisted on critical thinking in everything. Let's just rewind the last, 5-6 years. You know, we have thrown away critical thinking as a whole. We have thrown away the art of listening to understand rather than listening to answer. You know, so we have lost the etiquette of disagreeing.
You're making me coin phrases in my head just by explaining it. It's like the Common Core of Bigfoot analogy, right?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Don't even start beyond that.
We can't think our way through this, so let's come up with a Common Core of Bigfoot.
No, let's not. That's where it started going downhill right there. Let's teach to the test. Mm-hmm. Okay. So no, I think that it's like I hear a lot of people getting on about AI too. I didn't want to go there, but everyone is moaning and groaning, and you know, creators can't really create anymore, and authors can't author, and musicians can't music, and it's like, you know, no, the gatekeepers are gone, and now we are being forced to level up. We have got to level up, and we've got to take it more seriously, not take ourselves so seriously, but take the discipline more seriously, take the field more seriously. And that's what I got to say about it. I got no brilliant conclusion to that, but you know.
Right. So I just threw up a poll in the chat. Who do you trust more on the subject? Field researchers, scientists, eyewitnesses, or content creators? So I got about 30 people out there in the live chat. Let me know what you're thinking out there about that. And it's going. We got 5, we got 7 votes. We got, somebody took away a vote. Okay, it's back. Somebody changed their mind. We got 9, 10. Let's see. Yeah, let's see those votes. Get those votes and let me know what you guys
I agree with Graz. I agree with
What's
Brad.
Grass saying now?
No,
None
none
of
of
the
the
above.
above. No, that's what I would click on.
That's a yeah. Okay, that's a possibility too. But
I'm like,
you might as well
I mean,
go just watch
it's
the
like everybody, like, you know, most people in the Bigfoot community in this and that love the subject of Bigfoot, right? Like most everyone would be totally on board with, well, how do we move the ball down the field? I don't really look at it at a crossroads. I've always looked at it as how do we move the ball down the field?
right.
And it's pretty simple. It's like we just got to know where they're at. And
Well, how important do you think it is to preserve history in this subject or create new narratives?
not well, I don't want to create any new narrative. I want discovery. I think people want to know more. So the mystery creates that I want to know more, right? And so if we're interested in discovering Bigfoot, which we should be, like I think everyone is more interested, the most interest would be in discovery. We just got to know where they're at. We like they have got to be like nailed down into anywhere from a 10 square mile area to 100 square mile area, and discovery is easily done within that kind of area. You start getting to 1,000
If you were
square
trying to
mile.
analyze any other species, Pat, if you were trying to say, well, we know that there's elk in,
Right.
I mean, if we back this up hundreds of years, we know that there's a certain species in North America. Where are they likely to be? If we can try to approach this in a scientific method, but instilling common sense and saying, what do they need to survive? You're going to figure out a forage base. You're going to figure out water, a forage base, a water source, bedding areas. What do they need as far as geographical location in order to, do they need altitude? Do they need undulation? Do they need flat plains? Do they need, I mean, it's funny how every species isn't found all over, right? There's certain areas that just don't have the resources they need. So when you ask the question, where are they at?
Forested mountain areas, but there's too much of that.
I think the approach would start with where are they most probable to be at, but also where are they least likely to exist at, right?
Very near people.
And when that, you're right. I mean, probably when you figure, especially when you figure
they would have been
Dr. Meldrum's aspect of the only way they can survive is to be elusive.
Rare and elusive.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be elusive. That comes before anything. They have to be elusive.
And that destroys the Bigfoot narrative right there.
He's one of the ones that really guided me into understanding that he believes the majority of the Class A sightings that are reliable or at least credible,
they're all from non-Bigfooters.
Are from unexpected encounters and likely caught that subject, the Sasquatch itself, in a mode of curiosity that led them out of being elusive. They got too curious about something. They let their guard down too far. Or you caught them in a mode of protection. You got between where their young were. You got between where their food source is and where they are. You became a threat to what they need to survive by placing yourself in the wrong spot.
And there was no other human beings in that spot.
Yeah. So if
no other human beings in that spot. It was a 1v1 every single time. The most credible reports, like the shit you're talking about, like your story, it was 1v1. There wasn't 30 other people at camp right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, yeah. It was 1v1, and that makes sense because 80 million people go out in the woods and hike and camp in North America every year. And so those numbers add up,
Right.
you know.
So who do you
I
trust?
would have
more?
to say I've been part of that hiking and camping crowd, and 80 million or whatever you said are not going hiking and camping where Bigfoot are likely to be found.
Yes, they're
they are not
yes,
they
they
are
are.
not they are not at the snack bar at Yosemite. You know, so
no. They're absolutely going out into the remote wilderness, down the same dirt roads that Bigfooters go down, and the same primitive campsites. Like whatever campsite you've been to, thousands of other people have been there too.
I think that there are more gatherings that fall into the category of fellowship, education for each other, sharing each other's knowledge, each other's stories. It is an absorption of those we find like-minded to, okay? It isn't a scientific approach to locating one, because if that was the case, we wouldn't show up with 100 campers and all start a fire and have a hog roast.
But yet they come around and do whoops and knocks anyway, you know.
Well, that's part of the fun. That's the culture, and that, you know, and
that's playing footsie with them, yeah.
There's a difference between the scientific discipline of Bigfoot research and the cultural phenomenon of Bigfoot.
It's all psychological.
Me and Pat have jokingly covered that in our analogy of, or I should say our hypothesis of, 5 motorcycle mechanics can go camping for a week straight in whatever wilderness area you want to pick and come home. And when you say, did you have anything that you couldn't explain? They'd be like, no. But 5 Bigfoot channel YouTubers can go camping for 24 hours and come back with enough shit to write 5
documentary
about and make 150 t-shirts.
Yeah. Which
I feel vindicated
obviously
now.
not real. I mean, that's just not real. You can't Bigfoot on demand if they're rare and elusive. That's the bottom line. Reality will always hit you in the head. But yeah,
so
you be proud of me, Jeff.
We had 16 people vote. 49% says they trust the eyewitnesses. 38% says field researchers. 13% scientists, and 0% for the content creator. That's me.
But then we fall into...
Yeah, but the content creators are the ones that host the eyewitnesses.
Yeah. You know,
so that's a contradiction right in and of itself.
You know how answers just spur more questions oftentimes, right? So one of the possible answers, eyewitnesses, which was chosen the most, leads me to the question of, how many episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles are there now? Have they hit 1,000 yet?
Oh yeah, they're over 1,000. He's over 1,000.
So out of the 1,000 plus episodes of Sasquatch encounters, what percentage of them do you believe are real? And what percentage of them do you believe are either embellished or completely made up?
99%.
I was going to go 95. Like,
I was going to be like 95.
Yeah, so I mean,
95% garbage, 5% compelling.
And I would be somewhere there, Hannah. I would be somewhere there, Hannah. So when we have the answer, eyewitnesses are the most credible.
Most of it's bullshit.
Yeah,
most credible does not mean matter of fact. It means most credible.
Yeah, but that goes with anything. I could look at Jeff right now. I could look him in the eyes and, hey, Jeff, just because you said so doesn't make it true. Absolutely. Even if I believe you, even if I'm like, we're drinking a beer, we're watching the fucking college football championship and we're betting on it. We're having the fun we're going to go to the strip club. We are such good fucking friends. I can look you in the eye and go, I mean, just because you said so doesn't make it true. Maybe you were hallucinating. Did you eat a mushroom? I don't know. Like,
I'm not vain enough. You touched on a good point, Pat. I mean, earlier in the chat, somebody said, well, why should I believe Jeff on this? You shouldn't. You shouldn't believe anything I say. Go spend 9,000 hours looking through a spotting scope and in whatever area you want to. And if you don't see one yet,
so
let me know what your conclusion is.
So Jeff's words are magical. Jeff, do me a favor right now. Tell me I have 6 more zeros on my bank account than I actually have. Just go ahead and say that. Say it.
6 more zeros, Pat.
Boom. I'm going to go buy a Lambo tomorrow because Jeff said it. Because he said so.
And when the repo man shows up to take the car away, you can say, well, wait a minute.
Well, whatever, dude.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to be bringing this to a close. We have reached our time up here.
Exactly,
thank you guys for coming on. Hannah, I miss you. Thank you for coming on.
Miss you too, girl.
Chatting. And if you're ever in the area, please let me know because I'd love to see you. And
I have to come back to Texas in a few months, so maybe.
But you're gonna be way on the east side of Texas. That's like a day.
I know.
4 hours away. So thank you guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and having this discussion. It's always great to see Jeff and Pat. Thank you for bringing in your words of wisdom. I don't know. So let me do this closing statement here and we'll bring her to the close. So the passing of Jeffrey Meldrum, Scott Violette, Steven Streufert marks more than a series of personal losses. It marks a turning point. For decades, these men stood as guardrails. They didn't claim to have all the answers, but they insisted on asking the right questions. They believed that if Sasquatch existed, it would exist within the rules of biology, ecology, and evidence, not an exemption from them. As this generation fades, the responsibility now falls on the rest of us. We will preserve their standards or replace them with narratives that demand belief without proof. If Bigfoot research is to move forward, it wouldn't be through louder voices or stranger claims. It will be through discipline, skepticism, and the courage to say, we don't know yet. This evidence is not a eulogy. It's a challenge. This episode, because the future of this subject will be defined not by who we lost, but by whether we learned anything from them. So I'm Nikki Cologne, and this has been Sasquatch Secrets. Please be sure to hit that like button, share it, and subscribe. Hey, I finally hit 1,300 subscribers. Thank you all. I appreciate that so much. And hey, I'll see you guys in the next chat. Good night, everybody.